Hi everyone, welcome. I'm down here in my wormery, and the bin that we've got out here on the bench is now 100 days of age. It's a Red Wiggler system, and it's the system that we've been doing these ping pong feedings in. Not from the very beginning. In the very beginning it got a couple conventional feedings, and then the third feeding, and every feeding since then has been set up in a ping pong style. It was 13 days since we last checked in on this system, at which time we gave it a variety of root vegetables and just a mix of different types of kitchen scraps. And I think it's probably about due for a feeding. This covering here was a new addition last time we were in here. Previously we've been covering up with plastic, and it just seemed like things were getting a little bit too damp in here. So we thought that perhaps a covering such as this might allow for a little bit extra airflow and a little bit of drying in the system. It does seem like the diatomaceous earth sprinkled on top of this cardboard has taken care of a good number of the flying insects hanging out here. I'm just trying to make sure that a little bit of the diatomaceous earth gets onto every one of the bugs hanging out here so that they'll be going nowhere. Well, I guess maybe just down into the bin. Let the worms gobble them up. This would have been where we last fed, so today we'll feed over here. But before we open up the hole down here to feed, let's kill this centipede. And we'll just leave him right there in the bin. The worms can not nibble away at him too. Yeah, there's still bugs hanging out down in here. But maybe not quite as many as we saw last time we checked in. Tough to say. Surprising how dry some of this stuff on the surface got to be, but we'll submerge all that stuff so it has a fair shake at getting broken down. But before we drop our feeding in over on this side today, let's just see how the previous feeding is holding up after 13 days. I don't even remember at this point where it is, but in one of the sides we had fed pumpkin. There I go again. I keep calling it pumpkin. We had fed pineapple into one of the sides of this system, and at this point, I had some notes over there, right? The pumpkin's 52 days old at this point, and chances are we're going to bump into some leftovers of it because it's just a very slow going breakdown process. I'm not sure where it was. It could have been on this side. If it was, we'll probably bump into a pretty good size piece of it. Other than that, though, I'm not really sure I'm seeing any leftovers from previous feedings. I guess this right here is the stem of a banana, I believe. Or maybe not. No, it's something else. Almost like a piece of wood. Huh. I wonder how that would have gotten into my system. I guess when I use leaves as bedding, some of the stuff that gets sucked up into the leaf vac is not leaves. So sometimes I get a little assortment of different stuff. Gosh, there's something so weird about how this stuff looks. It's just so damp. And I think we already knew that last time. It's just that compared to how dry the surface is now, it just seems a little bit unusual to be seeing so much damp stuff down low. But that's pretty much what the worms like. So we're not going to try to dry the entire contents of the bin. I just thought that the top surface getting a little bit drier might result in fewer insects. So other than that little piece of wood that I thought was a banana stem, I don't really see much more. There was a variety of different yummy things put in here for them last time, and well, maybe we did finally find a leftover piece of something. I don't know what it is, but it's something other than bedding. Some sort of a food item that they must have received last time. I'm just wondering if it might benefit us to scoop up some of this dry and just, as long as we're at it, put it in a place where it's going to get a little bit more dampness and a little bit more attention from the worms. So we've just very slightly tainted whatever was in there previously, but there's really no sign of it anyway, so no sense in trying to preserve what happened here. It does seem like they've come in and nibbled away at the majority of the food. Since I didn't see any pineapple, I'm assuming it's probably on the other side. How soon we forget. I don't remember where we had placed it. So let's go excavate a hole for today's feeding. And maybe we'll bump into some of that old pumpkin. Not pumpkin, pineapple. Oh, I'm so bad when it comes to mixing certain foods up. All right, so down here we're seeing some worms hanging out. Down here too is a good bit of moisture. Oh yeah, this is the system that's got the cork in it too. I just stumbled on the cork. All right. What is this? This is also another unique item. This is the stem of a pumpkin. Man, this thing's really getting broken down pretty nicely. Worms are doing a good job on it. Whenever I put one of these into the system, I prefer not to try to break it up by hand. I'd just rather see what the worms are able to accomplish with it on their own without any help. Good bit of moisture down here. I just feel like I want to put some more dry stuff down into this pit. So now I'm starting to like feel a couple larger objects, and I'm thinking that might be some of the pineapple leftovers. I mean, it is refreshing to see worms in it after, you know, a month and a half. It's high time that they started nibbling on this stuff. Up until this check-in, I don't think we've really seen a whole lot of action on any leftovers of the pineapple, but that to me certainly seems like they're taking a shine to it finally. And that's a relief to see. This actually looks like, yeah, the bottom of the fruit. So this might just be a tougher object that they're having a harder time breaking down. Perhaps they've actually made a lot of progress on some of the other large, softer pieces that were down in here for them. I'm glad to see that the pineapple is finally getting consumed. Look at all this moisture down here. Jeez Louise. I bet you the worms like it. I'm sure they're not complaining about it. All right, let's put that piece of pineapple back down in the hole. See if we can find a couple of these drier items out on the surface that we can get down into the moisture. And I think in general it'll be good for the bin. Things look pretty nice in here. I think if it wasn't quite so damp, it might look even nicer. None of this material is going to crumble or flow, just, you know, based on its moisture content right now, the way it is. So I think that covering that we've got is probably just right, because it's going to gradually let the surface dry, and what's right below will remain nice and damp and cozy, but it'll hopefully help drive us in the direction of a little bit less moisture down in the system. So I created quite a good sized opening down here, and all I've got for them is a couple banana stems. I've also got my worm chow. So what do we have here? We got 3 banana stems, some worm chow. I've also got my grit, and I guess we could probably throw in a little bit of bedding for these guys. How does that sound? Yeah, let me get my pre-made bedding. Here we go. Let's just give them a couple nice generous handfuls of this stuff. They're going to love this. I'm not sure if I've been including much of this in the past. I probably have, because I've just been kind of on a kick to include lots and lots of bedding in all my systems. So I think that right there is going to amount to a pretty cozy spot for them. Not nearly as damp as the rest of the material in the system, so it might not interest them right away. But in time they'll get into it, especially with a couple delicious morsels in there like these. A couple yummy banana peels. Three of them actually. Very nice. You can give them a little bit of pulverized eggshell grit on that too. And you know, we had talked about maybe using this as bedding at some point. Why don't we just throw this in here too? Would it be better to piece it up a little bit? Maybe. That was just a flap of the covering. And there was this little piece too. Those were kind of left over when we tailored that piece of top covering cardboard to fit the opening, to kind of go in there nice and neatly. And this piece was just a little bit too much hanging off the side, so we tore it off, and we thought that at some point in the future we might be able to use it as bedding, and there we go. Good job. Alright, now I've got my worm chow too, but we know what we're going to do? We're going to throw in even more bedding, just so that the worm chow's got something to rest on and in. And then I guess at some point it'll hit all those little pieces of cardboard right below and not be able to drop down much further, so I guess the worm chow will kind of be out on the upper levels. So I think between the worm chow and the banana peels, I got a feeling that these worms are going to enjoy this meal. Hopefully they will. And man, it's so good to see that pineapple finally breaking down. It's high time. I bet you by the next time we check in here, there'll be hardly any of that left. I mean, maybe that one little really tough end of the bottom of the pineapple that we saw earlier, that the worms are still working on, that might still show some signs next time we come in here, but I couldn't really find any other pieces. And that would suggest that they've actually worked down the majority of it, or at least broken it down to the point where it's kind of falling apart into little pieces and becoming harder and harder to find in the bin. This is just the stem of a grape. So why don't we open up this feeding zone again here? We're going to place all these leftover items, the cork, the pumpkin stem, as well as the grape stem. We're going to get all these things right down into the hole again, right where they belong. That's where they came from, that's where they belong, so keep everything in order here. And I guess since the bugs still seem to be coming over here, I guess we'll treat the top covering with a little bit more of my diatomaceous earth, just so that if bugs keep landing on here, they'll keep encountering that stuff and they won't be happy. It does seem like seems like there's pretty good amounts of it all over the place. I don't even know if I need to add much. Yeah, whatever. We'll sprinkle in a little bit. How does that sound? That's a good generous amount. Alright, well, that's pretty much all she wrote as far as getting this bin fed. So, before I go, let me just really quickly say thank you. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, as always, please don't forget to leave me a quick thumbs up before you go. And if you haven't done so already, please also consider subscribing to the channel. Alright everyone, have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye now.